Hey, DeRacers. So we're back today talking about the DERC Army Season 6 Unraced competition. And more specifically, we wanted to talk to the people that are not registered at this event to make sure that you understand what you're missing out on and why you might want to consider taking a look at this thing. So before I dive into that, I want to also plug something about DeRace. If you haven't noticed right yet, on the player, when you're playing any types of the previous races, on the far right-hand side, there's a little arrow that when you click out, it will pop out a slider and it will allow you to connect to Discord. So you can start talking to people while watching the races, which is going to become probably a lot more entertaining during an event like that's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that we've talked about, you and I, about doing is having challenge races and other invite-only races where we can actually get a group of people together and just make it a little more entertaining, talking back and forth. It's kind of like having a live stream, right, where you have a chat option. You can now do that directly in the races. And as DeRace adds to that feature and we get better capabilities to jump between races and tag races and things like that in the future, hopefully that's something that becomes used a lot more.
Agreed. So let's focus on what the DERC Army's been doing. So 6 seasons, we've already competed 5 different times. Now, the seasons that DERC Army has hosted have evolved. Every single season has been unique to the previous. There's been no repeats. The competition has been evolving this entire time, which is pretty cool. Because when you take things like the Kentucky Derby, that thing evolved a lot for the first couple dozen years before it really got honed in. So with DERC Army, what they have figured out is that they are focusing heavily on the unraced. So that's why it's called the DERC Army's Unraced Gen 1 tournament. And it's because no horse is allowed to run prior to this event. You're not allowed to know anything other than if you bred the parents, but you go in there with a complete virgin horse and you start racing to compete. And so the people that you're competing against are in the exact same boat as you. Some people might have spectacular parents and they might be breeding a foal with a high probability of being a great one, but you don't know what they have and nor do they. So it's a really good way to level the odds. And then they're also using different scoring metrics, which I'll probably pass it over to you to kick off this one, but they're calling it the performance score. That you'll see it written as the perf score.
Yeah, perf score or performance rating is really just a tool that we've used in the past. It's what feeds things like the classification lettering that you see in some of our tools. It's also what's used when you just look at your horse, analyzing the data when you look at weighted win and indisputable. Now, for those that don't watch these or haven't watched a lot of these videos or haven't taken part in these events in the past, the weighted win is just a combined rating of your first place, second place, and third place scores being totaled together. And then indisputable is looking more specifically at the times you actually ran, not necessarily your spot on the podium. So when you combine those two together, we're actually then multiplying that by a factor in order to get a numerical value that relates to the combined score of weighted win and indisputable. That combined score, the performance score, is going to be used in this new season for the Unraced tournament. And I know that that's really something that we're excited about because we think it levels the playing field. You can't really run away having a horse that just gets on a lucky streak. And you can't have the opposite where you've got a horse that should have been doing really well, had a horrible streak, and thus doesn't get to go anywhere. So those are going to work themselves out, and we're going to see a lot of horses, I assume, be really close in score.
Yep, I agree. Because historically, there's been not cheating because the rules didn't really exist there, but you'll hear people talk about things like stacking, which stacking means you are filling the entire 12 races with your horses, disallowing any other competitors to go against you. And good use of stacking is you submit a bunch of donkeys in your stable combined with your good horses, so that way your good horses continue to podium and get a really high weighted win rate. So that's why the weighted win rate on its own is not a great score, but it is very good if you have an average competition. Whereas ours, which was the indisputable, which it doesn't care about your podium pace or position, but it cares about your pace. So then when you take the realized pace and you compare it to what you need to be good, you're indisputable, multiply it by your weighted win, which is what you've realized, it does help make sure that people aren't just cheating. It's leveling it out. It's a good score. And so with this, when a new competitor, enter this thing, you have less to be worried about of veterans that know these games, that know these skill points, because it's really going to come down to the capability of your horse. So it's very important for that. And then DERC Army is going to have leaderboards where it's going to show what's called the TD. So that is going to be the turf and the distance. So whenever you see TD, if you see like a turf 6, that would be the TD is turf, and then the furlongs is 6. So as you see people appear on that and you recognize that, hey, my horse is ranked 8th and I need to be ranked 6 or higher, you can then make the decision, do I want to chance it a couple more times to see if I could succeed here? But you'll be able to have a fair representation of how well your horse is doing against others.
Yeah, another nice thing is, and I guess we're kind of diving into some of the specifics of this particular event at this point. There's 3 weeks to the event, and we have the first week is going to be focused entirely on training grounds. And for people who don't have horses out there or who are just thinking about getting involved in an event like this, the training grounds is really where you get to feel out your horse. It only costs 1 DERC to enter a race. The training grounds are only horses that are level 1 to 25. They're basically already unraced largely to begin with, and that's where this tournament starts out. So you're going to be diving in facing only horses that are of a similar unknown capability level. And so as you do those races, you're going to be automatically scored. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to track anything. Brad and the DERC Army are going to be doing all that. The leaderboards, like you mentioned, Vamp, are going to be automated. You're going to be able to check on those. But what's really key here is that even though you may want to try running your horse everywhere, in each week, you only have to score on a minimum of 5 different tracks. So we're going to take your top 5 points on a track and distance combination, TD, and we're going to score those, combine those 5 together, and that's your total score. So if you have a perf score of 4 on 5 different tracks, you have a total of 20 after 1 week. So that's how it's going to be ranked. Now, there's a lot of other things, and I'll throw this back to you in just a second here on these special race series and some of the other races that will be happening in between the weekly events. But when it comes to the performance score, again, that first week is running those training grounds is really where you get a chance to test out your horse. So we would probably recommend that you attempt to run on as many different surfaces and distances as possible to get a sense of where your horse might be good. Because in weeks 2 and 3, you're not going to want to spend all the DERC, right? Running as many races as possible. You're going to target your best ones to try to get your perf score up. Because again, you only need to qualify on 5. And one last thing, to qualify, you just have to have run 10 races on that particular track and distance.
Yep. And what I like about this change, and so this is probably a lot to consume if you've never been a part of this. So we're not trying to scare you away, but more trying to show you that this level of sophistication is really good to help make it fair for a lot of other players. Now, historically, when you had the scoring was based off of the top performers, you had horses that were just in God mode that could do really well on 15 plus tracks. And when you can do well on 15 plus tracks, you're almost guaranteed a spot in the finals. Whereas, like you said, now you only get the top 5. So that God mode horse, its 5 best ones are probably really good, but your horse that might be okay, it's going to cherry pick its also 5 best scores to compare. So it's not your 5 tracks versus this other horse's 15. So
Correct.
More and more, this is getting leveled. So that way we could see ways that we could set horses up. Now, if you do not have a horse, if you're just seeing this stuff and you're just fascinated by the project and you still, for some reason, have not yet bought a horse, you'll see things about dabs. And then the dabs is going to be the DERC Army's auction house, basically. And what they will do is they will breed horses. Some of these horses, the parents are unraced, so you have no idea how good or bad they might be. I bought an auction horse, and it's one of my best horses. And then dabs horses also come with some extra perks, like either free entry into the events. There's donkey insurance in case your horse just sucks altogether. And then there's even competitions where the dabs horses will go against other dabs horses. So if you're looking to get a part of this organization, you could buy a horse from the dabs, or you could rent a horse from DeRace now. Has to be unraced. Make sure you don't rent a horse that's been raced, and then it's a $25 registration for this. So it's basically a month-long event where it's just lots of fun, lots of trash talking, all that, and it costs $25. And if you notice, there's lots and lots and lots of opportunities to win money back. So when it comes to play to earn, the real place to earn, the real fun in the game does exist in these competitions. So if you're sitting on the benches and all you do is go to derace.com/races and that's all you do, just want to show you that you're playing this game in the most boring fashion there exists. Switch over and join the party where all of us are. And it's not intimidating. It's very welcoming. And that's where you should be.
Yeah, I cannot stress that enough, that all you have to do is get your hands on an unraced horse and pay the $25 entry fee, and the community will help you out with the rest. You're going to be entering into races. You're trying to get those 10 races on each track that you want to qualify for, and that does take some effort. So we also offer, the community has a couple of different racing bots that are available. We have one called ARM that we can hook you up with and get you set up with if you want to just automate the racing. But if you do want to sit and actually pay attention to what your horse is doing, it's going to be a lot of fun, because for the next 3 weeks, this starts September 1st, right? Like super early on September 1st. For the following 3 weeks, it's going to be nuts. The amount of race entries and race filling that's going to occur is unbelievable, especially in that first week as people are getting to know their horses. So enjoy the races, enjoy watching them, even if you don't partake. But we do recommend that you partake, and reach out to us if you have any questions or want some help on getting started.
Agreed. Something else I just want to touch on too is just scrolling down here. This, if you are not in real world horse racing fan, this might not make much sense to you, but this is something that you and I both, I think, like a lot, because when you go into real horse racing, I like this game because it was mimicking more reality than some of the other games out there where it just felt just like a game. But when horses compete in the certain events, to get like the Triple Crown, to win all 3 major trophies of a big event is very, very rare in the horse racing industry. So they're starting to create these different ones. So you got the Leg 1, the Dabs Derby, then the Breeders' Cup, the Golden Horseshoe. So DERC Army is doing this where it is transitioning to be very similar to what real world horse races would do. So even though it is fairly complex, again, to digest everything, you don't need to know all of these details. But I think it's important that you understand that this game goes beyond the platform, the community and the culture and the things that we're trying to build. This is the stuff that I think is going to be really exciting. And for people that start to bet in, like, it's not just the slot machine. It's not just that single pole. It's not just analyzing one race. It's now starting to track the stable assessments and trying to find out what breeders, what pairs. There's so many things that you could really dive into and get obsessed about. It's just, don't stop short. There's a lot more layers to peel back and really get involved.
Yeah, and if you find that your horse is only halfway decent on certain tracks and not a ton of them, what the DERC Army's done here that's kind of hard to assess on the surface, but is really powerful in this particular season, is that half of the event is focused on what we've been talking about with the performance score and running multiple tracks and combining those scores, etc. It sounds complex. Even though they do all the work for you, you don't have to do much. There's also a whole other side to this, which is related to these special series and the juvenile Triple Crown. It's all profit based. So if you decide, hey, you know what, my horse does not have what it takes to compete across 5 different surfaces, but it's making decent profit on a bunch of them, maybe mid-level, and you want to go after 2 DERC and 3 DERC races to try to compete in the profit side of things, you can do that. You don't have to take part in both sides. You can do one or the other. So again, there's more options here. It's pretty cool. All the different prizes, the way the DERC Army sets it up is really nice, and we can't say enough about those guys. So
absolutely. The last thing that I have to offer on this one is the final reason why you should always participate in the Unren tournament is, even if your horse completely sucks and it is a mega donk, we have the Donkey Death Match, and we're going to be regularly doing this. Right now, we're still holding out for 48 donkeys because we're going to be giving away an unraced Olympian. And so The goal and hope is that Olympians will become more and more rare. I believe this one's even an Appaloosa Olympian, so it looks really cool. And so if you show up and you compete in this thing and you just get wrecked hard, one, there is an award for whoever has the worst of the donkey, so that works. But then send it into the death match and get a chance to win something else. So it's just, there's lots of opportunities out there. Just, I think I have 5 horses going into this event. How many are you up to now?
It's kind of scary. I think I'm going to be submitting 14 in total. So it's pretty ridiculous. But I mean, the last we checked, and we still got a couple days of entries going, they're over, I believe, over 110 entries at this point. So it's pretty impressive. And there's going to be a lot of racing happening.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you get there. We'll have all the links that are necessary down below. If you do not make this registration, still go to the DERC Army Discord. Pay attention to it. It's going to be a lot of fun chatter going back and forth. And they seem to do these events every 2 months. So if you missed this one, stay tuned. There's going to be another.